there, gentle people, and welcome back to another episode of the It's Not Always Dark podcast. I'm Kieran.
And I'm Erin. And today we're here for something quite special, actually.
Something new. Everything's new on this podcast, guys. That's what you get when you listen to new things. New stuff.
It's me teaching today. I say teaching. Oh. It's me provoking a discussion about...
Classes in session.
It really is.
I'm really sorry I forgot to bring you an apple.
So rude. So rude.
I'll send one to your house.
You send me one with like worms in it. Rude.
God. Rude. the thought of like fruit and then having a little like creature come out of my fruit, no. That's why I'm always scared and I wash my strawberries.
I mean, I'd like to say that I was one of those people, but like I definitely just like I'm out here ingesting pesticides.
Oh, but at the same time, there is such a thing as like immunity. So you build up immunity to stuff by having like a non-washed version of it.
Well, there we go.
That's why they encourage
organic,
you to eat strawberries that aren't washed. So, Erin, would you like to tell us what we're going over today?
So today we're talking about something very near and dear to my heart, to your heart, to all the hearts, I'd imagine.
To all the hearts of the world.
All 7 billion of them. Is that the right ballpark number?
It sounds probably bigger now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Let's go for 8 billion to be safe. We're just going to round up.
We're talking about pop music, guys. Welcome to the Pop Music Podcast. Popular music
station. I can't believe it's not pop.
Anyway, it's you, it's me. We're here to talk about pop music.
Yes, we are.
I'm just going to give like a quick like rundown of what Bestie Wikipedia defines popular music as. So she says, popular music is music with wide appeal that is typically distributed to large audiences through the music industry.
Yeah.
And then, so that's like popular music as a whole. And then
that's like a little summary.
So that's like what my degree was in. And then we have like pop music as a genre.
Okay.
And then we know what we
Very
think.
different things, both widely distributed.
Yeah, so like we think of like it's the same way that like you'll have like popular film, which will be like shit that's at the cinema. Just
the films that really made big on the box office.
But there will be genres within that. So like,
I mean, there is like a genre in film, like the blockbusters, like that's like its own genre, and they don't always break the box office, so they can't really all be blockbusters, but they still use it.
Cough cough cats.
Crickets.
I mean, dancing roaches. Anyway, so I thought we would just like come into this today with a little open discussion about like how we both enjoy pop music, popular music, what we listen to roughly, what we liked growing up. Just some broad brush strokes.
Love it. I love a broad stroke. That was my best one in the pool.
So what kind of stuff did you listen to growing up? What do you listen to now? What's your vibe?
Okay. So realistically, I've always been someone who, like, to start with, I would listen... I feel like I've told you this before. So when I was younger, I would go to, like, my grandma's house, and the first, like, music that I really, like, listened to, like, a full discography from an artist was ABBA. My grandma was, like, a huge fan of...
Go her.
I don't even know if she was, like, a huge fan, but she was a big enough fan to have, like, the cassettes. So she would have had it on, and I'd be listening and having a good time. So I'd say that was like early days music taste.
Yeah, I feel like
but then
that
I was
like
also being influenced.
It was like a different time back then. It's like if you liked an artist, you would buy the album and listen to the whole album. Whereas now you'd probably like with playlists, you sort of listen to a track by them, and
totally.
You maybe have a couple.
Yeah, as soon as we've like gone on. It is a case now where you can just like a few songs from an artist because you've got so much more option.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked ABBA. I really enjoyed like the noughties 2000 music, like when we were doing the full British moment with like the Sugar Babes and Girls Aloud, like the girl bands. They did some real fun stuff, but
I know you were a big,
Queen.
you were into the
I liked a
Pussycat
lot of
Dolls. I
Queen.
remember you saying that.
Oh yes, yes, yes. The Pussycat Dolls were also they're part of the noughties for me. Like
Yeah.
they're in that same region as the Sugar Babes.
Yeah, you saying Queen. Queen's a big one for me as well,
Queen,
growing
yeah,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, just I mean, I think I don't even know if I necessarily say it's like the full like discography from Queen, but like the amount of hours I've listened to Bohemian Rhapsody alone,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I did put my hours of streaming in there before the streaming systems were up.
What kind of stuff do you... I mean, obviously, we've said before, like in our childhood podcast, in case people haven't heard that, we were big into, like, we were like High School Musical, Hannah Montana, Cheetah
Oh
Girls
yeah,
era
yeah.
babies. Like, that's who we were.
Yeah, like all of the songs from like if there was a Disney original, like a Disney Channel original movie soundtrack, I was on it.
Yeah.
But then also I gave time to, I'm sure there was probably something on Nickelodeon I would have listened to as well. I really did consume a lot of the music content because I loved music. I still love music. No one, I'd like to meet the person that doesn't love music, but
Although that person exists, like, there's the people that are like, I just don't like music. Like, I just don't get it. And it's like, right,
cool, good for
cool.
you.
You're not like other people.
Well,
Great.
anyway, you're edgy. You're different.
We get it.
Love it. I'd say though for me, early days music was definitely something that if I could listen to it like on YouTube on like the computer, on
Yeah.
the family computer, it would have been on. And if not, I probably wouldn't have heard it often because I remember one time my sister like tried to set up like an MP3 player for me and she was trying to like burn music onto it and I didn't get the process like at all. I was like, I don't know how this works.
I had
Maybe
I had
was
to
it
relearn how to do it recently for some like I can't
Oh.
remember. Oh, it was for a backing track. I had a backing track that I wanted, because it was in a specific key,
Oh, I see.
and I had it on a CD, and I had to like go down to like the family computer, like the desktop, to like load in the disc and like burn it onto the computer. I'm like,
Yeah.
who like. I had to Google how to do it. I'm like, it's been some years since this has had
It's
to
been a
happen.
long time since we've had like I always find it weird because I think we just kind of accept things as they change in technology and the availability of things. And so for that whole process to have been eliminated and for streaming to have been implemented for younger generations to just get on board with from the get-go, like they have so much at their hands. Like they can listen to anything and that's why I think TikTok these days is like a great like amalgamation of today's youth discovering all of the stuff at once and taking bits and pieces from songs they like and can, you know, letting it live on and have like a legacy with like another track. They love mashups. Like
Yeah.
there's so much going on to promote what otherwise could have been lost because if we'd stuck around with the system of just even just CDs, that's a process because you know do you remember what it was like to have to put on a CD if you wanted to listen to music?
Yeah, I mean, like
'Cause do.
I have a CD player in my car, so like I still own and use CDs, but like
Yes.
I rotate between like 4, and then obviously like the Christmas CDs at Christmas slash if I really need to pick me up in July.
A random July in the car that you're just sobbing to
I'm just
Santa
like,
Claus is coming to town.
I really needed to listen to Lonely This Christmas by Mud right now. Like, my life can't go on until it's happened. No, but I guess, like, also, like, Spotify, like, editorial playlists and stuff like that. Also, like...
Yeah, there's so much that makes it easier. And even for ourselves, like, there's so much that I've discovered thanks to streaming becoming widely available that's really put in perspective for me that, oh, I don't just like songs from now. Like, I really do like songs that have lived the, you know, that they've stood the test of the time.
Yeah, and it's like, I feel streaming and playlists, like, the ones that, like, I love that Spotify playlist, the one that's, like, songs to sing in the shower.
Yes, yes, yes.
And ones
I
like
love
that.
these prompts.
Because I'm like, yeah, but then it like brings back
will
songs
sing
that
that
like
show.
I will have forgotten about from like days gone by.
Yeah.
Like
Nothing feels nicer than like a song coming on that you had completely forgotten about it. You hadn't sung it in your head in years, and suddenly Spotify has put that on like a shuffle, and you have that song playing. For me, that song was Brandy, You're a Fine Girl. that song came
So
on and I
good.
completely forgot about its whole existence. And I it came on Spotify like I think after a shift one night, and I was like walking or cycling home in the middle of the night,
Mhm.
and it really just hit me in that moment. There's a line where it's like at night when the bars close down, Brandy walks through a silent town, and there I was, felt like Brandy. I was just out from the bar and
You're like, here I am.
silent town. I honestly,
Relatable
it felt like I was being
content.
addressed by that. But that's one of the music, like the really fascinating things about music is that when it depends on when it hits you, you know?
Yeah.
Like I always find that music comes in for me at just the right point, and it kind of helps encompass my feelings and my emotions of a time period because
Mhm.
I can remember what it felt like to be then.
I also think like I have songs that will remind me of like specific places or like specific
Yes.
destinations. And that like obviously I think most of us probably have music on when we're commuting or driving or busing
Hmm.
or cycling. I don't know. I mean if you're cycling 1 year in, people make sure you can hear the traffic. But
Yeah. You have been very concerned about it, especially when I was doing my cycling. Like I remember Erin would be like, "Are you gonna be okay? Like, are you good?"
like no, but you
I was like, "I'm
cycling in the middle of
fine."
the night with no helmet
I
and no
know,
high
and
vis
two
and two
and two
earphones in.
earphones. No, because I did change my jacket to like a really bright color, so no one could miss me. That was my compromise.
That was like, okay, fine, Erin.
I was like, okay, guys, I'll fix it. I'll get this right.
But no, like I have songs that like I think especially when I was at uni and stuff, because I was
Mhm.
commuting in first year
To and
specifically.
from.
And that's
Yeah, no,
like
I went through the commuting process.
I'd be
Not
like
cute.
learning songs on the way to practice because I'm so professional.
Oh,
So
no, I
I
love
have
that
like
though.
there's like songs that like if they ever come up on shuffle or anything that I'm so triggered by, but I can think about the specific place I was driving whilst I was trying to memorize the lyrics. Like
That's
shit,
funny.
oh no.
Oh no, the song's not going in.
And it would always be like something that like a bass player or a drummer had picked that was really like rhythmical and had like
Oh,
syllables broken up in like ways that were
oh,
just uncomfortable.
of course.
Like
Why
just
not?
completely there's songs that you can tell they weren't written by a singer
Yeah.
and it's something that I'm like hyper aware of now because like the way that
Hmm.
like guitarists and rhythm section players write music as
Hmm.
like we all make music based on like what comes most natural to us and
Yes.
like that doesn't necessarily always work for other instruments but
No, it does not.
oh what a fun detour, sorry everyone. I've really got
No,
I've really just
these are
like
the things I like listening
brought up
to.
something within myself there that
No, because I think it came up. No, I think it's right. I want to say that I find when I listen to songs that came out and have references to like a year, so in specific, 2012 is the year that always seems to come up in a song. You know, Black Eyed Peas, I Got a
two
Feeling.
0 1 2
Like it comes up more than you'd like to admit. And
Mhm.
I think that I get transported back to how I felt then. And I remember hearing these songs and thinking, oh, the world's amazing. Like the world's great. We're fine. We're gonna party.
No,
We're
but
gonna have fun.
we thought 2012 was going to be the end of the world.
We did. That movie came out.
Little did we know what was round the corner, eh?
Little did we
Little
know.
did we know. What's your current music take? Like, what do you like? What do you
I love
indulge?
a mix.
I love
So,
that.
okay, I really do like I'm one of these people who I'm like everyone. I hate that we try and perpetuate that anyone is unique these days with having like a range of music within their like
Yeah.
discography of listening to. But for me, it's a good mix of multiple eras. I like different sounds,
Mm-hmm.
and so if I'm just talking about stuff that I listen to currently,
Mm-hmm.
um, I am really into the girl rappers of
Nice.
today's game. The girl rappers, they've got a lot going for them, and I think that they carry themselves with such a persona that I can't not be obsessed with how they perform.
Yeah.
Um,
She's a
so
mammoth.
when I talk about this, yeah, when I'm mentioning people, I mean like Megan the Stallion, I mean like Doja Cat, like a lot of these girls. I mean, I will say this, and this is something that needs to be said. I think that Nicki Minaj did the absolute most for rap
Yeah.
in general, and the way that we all knew the words to Super Bass, that's a cultural reset. We all knew it.
The way
I
that Sue
remember learning the
Sylvester.
words just so I could be in on it. And other artists that I like to listen to today, I mean, Ariana Grande always comes up with good songs, so
Oh
I
yeah.
really enjoy a lot of the stuff that she's been coming out with.
We've just been reminiscing about Ariana.
Yeah, I think it's been a while coming, and I think she has another album coming out soon, which is great
Of
because
course she
we're all in
does.
lockdown and we need something to keep us going. I definitely say that I have like rediscovered and I've touched back upon Nirvana for the first time in my life because I know
I
everyone had like a
remember these
phase where they listened
things.
to it, and yeah, a lot of people they bought the shirts and everything, and I think that I got so discouraged from being told like, oh, you can't have a Nirvana shirt if you don't know everything about the band. I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't really know much about them, so I'm just gonna stick in my lane.
Can I just like do a quick PSA? Like, I feel like I need to just put
Please.
this out there. So, like, music snobs of the world, can you just not, like, let's not hate on people for trying new things, trying new
Yeah.
musics, liking
Hmm.
musics that are mainstream or pop? Can we not
Or
look down
alternate.
on people for liking music that is quite simple? Can we
Mind your
also
business.
not, like, also, you know, the 1975 are a lot, but they aren't everything. So let's just stop with all that.
Hmm. I think it's just interesting because to me, I just could not care less about what other people are listening to unless they want to recommend something to me. And
Yeah.
so I go by the standpoint of if I'm listening to something, please just don't think it doesn't encapsulate my personality or who I am. I'm just enjoying a song.
Yeah,
Think
like
about
let's just
music
not look
doesn't
down
define
on
you, do you know what I
people.
mean? Mm.
It's not that.
I think it's too easy to be swept up in the, oh, I'm gonna look down at you because I listened to those people like 5 years ago and that was when they were at the peak. And
Yeah.
cool. I wasn't there for that,
But like
so
I
here I am
enjoy it now.
appreciating them
Yeah.
now because art's to be consumed. Yeah, so for me, yeah, it was Nirvana. I'm having a nice little moment with it, and then people that I always end up going back and listening to. So I really love Earth, Wind, and Fire. Like if I want like a fun disco-y sound, but then also one of my favorite songs with them is called "After the Love Is Gone," and it is this really like uplifting but still kind of sad track about just the love of a relationship being gone. And it feels so good to listen to when you just need like a moment to self-reflect. So
Yeah,
I'd say those are the ones I probably listen to the most right now.
I love like music being a way to like express a feeling that like or to like live through a feeling that you really just need to feel in that moment so you can let it go.
Yeah,
Like, you know, 'cause sometimes you're just like, I really need a cry today, and I know that I will be fine once I've had a
yeah.
cry. So, like, I'm just
And
gonna
once it's
go and
gone,
like listen to some music, listen to some songs that I know are gonna provoke the
we'll get
cry.
that.
Have the cry.
Provoker. Skate around.
Just like, literally, just like induce the cry, have
Hmm.
it, and move on. And it's the same with like having a happy feeling. Like, you know, like there's sometimes like you need to like I hope everyone has like a playlist that's just their hype songs that they listen to when they're about to do something quite scary or just like even a
Hmm.
boring task, but you're like, I need to be hyped up to do this. So I'm
Even
gonna go
just like
listen.
going in for like a shift at work, I
Oh
have
yeah.
like a pre-work like hype playlist that gets me like really energized by the time I'm walking through that door. And so when I come down this, when you come down the stairs and you get to work,
Yeah.
I like to think I'm still on the vibe of upbeat
You're still walking
hype
on
music.
sunshine.
I do feel that way though, and it just takes a little bit longer for my spirit to be like crushed by the expectations of work.
That's fair. That's completely fair. I feel like I need to throw my hat into the ring a bit. Um,
Please.
like growing up, I was like big into like McFly, Busted,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
but also like had you know those like pop party CDs that are like the kiddie
Mm-hmm.
version of Now That's What I Call Music.
Yes, yes, yes.
Loved all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that was available on SingStar.
Oh, SingStar was fun.
Generally was a hit with me. And then obviously we have like anything sort of like any musical that you probably would have done as a kid. Loved like Oliver, Annie. Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat was a big hit with me for like no apparent reason, but I really got
I
into
was
it.
Joseph.
Of course you
I played
were.
Joseph, Nativity Joseph. I basically was being cast in a main role, and I thought, this is it. This is stardom. Me expecting like a big role every year after that for the Nativity did not come about.
Didn't make the
But
cut. That's
that's not relevant. We didn't do it every year
that's
anyway.
the life of an
I was
actor.
special
You
once.
can't always win. And then honestly, same as you, loved a bit of Hannah Montana, High School Musical, Cheetah Girls,
Yeah.
and
Oh
then
yeah.
going into like our girl power moment that happened. Like early teen years, loved the Angus Long's and Perfect Snoggin soundtrack. Like anything that was on that was like a hit. Like Scouting for Girls, that whole vibe.
Oh yes,
Like
yes,
that sort of like
yes.
Britpop, Lily Allen type of era.
I didn't even mention Lily Allen. What a fun artist. She's so whimsical, I think, is what
Yeah.
I like about her stuff.
I think like without realizing it, a lot of the music that I do is very influenced by Lily Allen.
Yeah, but that's how you have to like go with these influences because they'll have affected you in one way or another without
Yeah.
you even realizing it.
That was I didn't even realize that she would be an influence on me, but like recently I went back to listen to some of her stuff and I was like, wow, I see it. And then going on from that, I did have my like alternative Erin phase where I got really into
Okay.
like pop punk. Slash also like some kind of metal. I went to some metal gigs.
Oh.
Which can you
Oh
imagine like
wow.
me
I
but
love that.
younger,
Yes.
even more just like befuddled by the world
I'm
than I am
honestly
now.
picturing like your baby photo, but like someone's edited you to look like a bit of a goth.
Yeah, like
And
my
it's
baby
making me
photo,
giggle.
but like I'm trying to look like Taylor Momsen. So much to unpack there.
I think that was like a big thing though, especially in high school. That's why when I talked, like when I was mentioning Nirvana, it was because at that time in high school, the girls, the friends, all these people surrounding me, they were getting into like All Time Low
Oh my
and
goodness.
like
Me.
My Chemical Romance, like all these bands that I totally think they've got a great array of music, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but I just didn't have the interest. So I
At the
remember being
time.
like very hesitant to try anything out of my comfort zone just because I didn't want to be like trying to pretend I was something I wasn't.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna
Oh,
be like
that's just dumb.
full disclosure. Like I definitely got into that sort of music because I wanted people to think I was cool, and I don't know why I thought that was gonna happen because that's just like not who I like. I like that music, like and like All Time Low are having a resurgence. They had a bit of a TikTok trend,
Oh,
quite
that's
funny.
cool.
To the extent like
Fun.
my little brother was like listening to them the other day, and I was
Oh,
like, this is
fascinating.
bringing up a lot in me that
Memories.
I haven't seen for a while. That was definitely my like I wanted to be like in with the cooler kids, so that's
Yeah.
like I started listening to it, and then I actually it turns out I did like it, but that's just
Isn't
some
it
honesty.
incredible how much we will try to like pretend that we love stuff when we really don't?
Yeah. And it's like it's not that I didn't love it, but it's just I wouldn't have naturally like I was still very like to this day like always and forever and always Taylor Swift, like T Swifty for
She's
years.
had some bangers,
Like
some good hits, yeah.
I had that Fearless album and I that on
Worn
CD,
out.
like I don't even know if it'll work anymore because it's like it's
It's
been
been
played.
used.
And then like nowadays I'm still listening to Taylor Swift. Like her releasing 2 albums in a year. Gal,
It's fascinating.
doing so much.
I think that honestly, we might we might get a new Rihanna album.
Possible. It's gonna be good whatever it is.
I think so. I think there's high hopes for her, and I think that she'll deliver because I think that the artists in the studio they've had nothing but time.
Yeah.
Like that's all you can really do right now if you're a musician.
Yeah, I think we're
You're
getting
not able to go and perform live.
yeah, because we've not got like the touring aspect.
Hmm
That
Like all that's been cut out, so now it's time to get back in the studio, girl.
Yeah, and it's so fun to have so much new music available right now. I feel
Oh, it's
very
the only thing
treated.
keeping me really going some days. It's like a new release from an artist these days. Like if I'm having like a bit of an off day and I know I'm not about to go and have like a fun time of anything because
Mhm.
of the current situation we're in the world, music, what an escape. What a
Yeah,
nice way to feel for the day.
I'm really loving like because of lockdown and stuff, especially last year. Like a lot of my
Hmm.
pals weren't able to record music the way that they were planning to, and
Yeah.
things got shifted and this, that, and the other. And like over the last sort
Hmm.
of since Christmas, really, we've had people sort of releasing the music that they've been waiting to release for a long time, and it's really
Yeah.
exciting to see people, even on like a completely like bedroom recording level,
Hmm. But still,
putting stuff
what's
out
like
there.
I love that everyone's having the time for this, and I think that that's a topic that I don't know if it would come up otherwise if I don't mention it, but like the SoundCloud artists,
Yeah.
that there are some real gems on SoundCloud. Like
Hmm.
there's some songs on there that I have heard that have really left a huge impact on me,
Hmm.
and I think it's great that some artists are discovered on SoundCloud, and I think that's why we need platforms like that to exist.
Yeah, I think especially like being able to share music free of charge is
Hmm.
is a gift. But like
Yeah.
all these platforms have their like benefits and hindrances because
Yeah.
obviously like
People.
not everyone uses SoundCloud, and like
Hmm.
Spotify is sort of the standard. Like Spotify or Apple Music are kind of the standard, and
Hmm.
then you have like other platforms as well, which are like
You
still
know, there have
massively
been.
successful. Like it's not that
Uh,
they're not, but like your SoundCloud, your Bandcamp and stuff, you're
hmm.
probably gonna
But
have to
then I know
direct people
that,
there.
yeah, I know though as well though that some people have had issues with like their work being stolen and stuff because they have put it on a free platform. Like that's one of
Mm.
the weird things about music is that there is only so much you can do with sound, but it's quite easy to pick out when someone's taking from another person. When you,
Yeah,
especially a side by side listen, like there's nothing clearer than that.
yeah. I mean, like copyright and plagiarism and stuff is it's a big topic, and there's so much you can go
Totally.
into. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think you see it in a fair amount of things, like
Hmm.
artists as well. Like obviously, I think lockdown has done wonders for like small businesses and
Yeah.
um like creators of art and tote
Content.
bags and vintage stuff
Mm.
and whatever, like all these
Yeah.
people with their Etsy shops, like, but then you see their work getting copied and sold on by bigger manufacturers, and that's kind of sad. And it's,
Yeah, it's disheartening.
but to bring us back to pop music, I thought we would
Hmm.
just like go through a little timeline and have a chat about some
Okay.
decades, talk
Okay.
about like what was sort of iconic and key to those decades, and then what we love of it, because
Hmm.
we're starting in the 50s purely because of like the birth of rock and roll, and it's not like pre 50s popular music was, it was a slightly different thing.
Yeah,
Like
there was
we
more going on to it.
so we're starting in the 50s. We've got
Hmm.
the birth of rock and roll,
Honky tonky.
drawing on from like blues and all the things. But you
Mm.
can't think rock and roll and not think Elvis, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of praise given toward Elvis for popularizing rock and roll and having like an aesthetic that you can match up with rock and roll. Like for me, I always think about the suits and the capes and all
yeah,
these like extravagant like Western styled outfits that he would come out with
yeah, just
for rock and roll and like
so American. Like
and
that's
like there was huge idolization from a lot of people that I know
yeah.
for Elvis. Like one of my grandma's like neighbors, like her whole living room used to be like a big Elvis shrine.
That's funny.
And so that is like my introduction there.
I also think I can't think of Elvis and not think of Lilo and Stitch.
Oh yeah.
Like I
Like
think that was actually
what a
my
fun
introduction to
addition.
Elvis was Lilo and Stitch.
It was along there for me too. It was a combination. I don't think you always recognize people. Even when you've heard their sound, it takes a few more attempts before you get, oh, that's the person that I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Got it.
me finding out in later life that like Elvis wasn't
Hmm.
part of Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride. No, I'm
Fascinating.
joking. That
Um,
that wasn't serious for everyone at home.
oh, I didn't get the reference at all.
Oh my goodness,
I was
I'm
like, sure.
uh-huh. But like then obviously like 50s you've got gospel, R&B, jazz, like it's all
Hmm.
just brewing together. Like it's all just being made. I mean, obviously like segregation was an issue, so like not completely together. Like
Yeah,
let's
but
not
I
blur
was
that
gonna
out.
say like there's a huge amount of, credit that is due and owed to just black people in general for their influence on music. The way that, I mean, blues wouldn't be what it is, soul wouldn't be what it is. We wouldn't have so many genres if it weren't for black musicians.
Rock and roll in that whole like time period, like it was very birthed out of America, and the I think there's always going to be an issue of like paying credit where credit's due because
Yeah.
it's rough and like we weren't there. Do you know what I mean? Like we
No,
don't.
of course, like we didn't come in until the 90s. So like we haven't existed in these times, but from what we can understand, I think it's just, important to embrace that
Let's not
we wouldn't be
steal
where we are
from
without.
like
Yeah, because
cultures
we've already, like,
without.
racism's been such a strong thing in the world
Yeah,
since these times and way past it. So I think it's important that whilst we talk about something like music that we all love so much, we have to understand that black creators really put a lot of music where it is. So
yeah, but it's also
huge
like
shout outs.
it's important that we say that we acknowledge that as well because
Hmm.
obviously we've grown up on a very white
Oh, very like
island.
westernized white sound, and a lot of praise has been given to these white musicians that I don't know if the same praise would have been given to the black musicians who really founded a lot of it.
Yeah, and also just like so much of what we listen to now is development of originally black music. And
Yeah, precisely.
yeah, there's a difference I think between like development of a genre and cultural appropriation, but
Hmm.
it's a messy subject, but we just want to acknowledge it. Like we're not seeing it.
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge before we start on all this, because so much of my listening taste I know is influenced by black creators, and I think that it was just an important point to make.
Yeah, going back to the 50s, like it's obviously I think back then it's still the same now but slightly different and that music and dance were so linked in a way that like
Mm,
you would go to a dance hall to do a specific
yeah.
dance to a specific type of music with a
Yes.
partner. Like we were
Fascinating.
jiving, we were doing all the stuff.
The hand
And
jive.
well Greece is set in the 50s, right? Like
Hmm.
so fun. But like now I suppose we have like dance reflecting popular music in the way that we have like TikTok dances and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's just a fun journey, honestly.
It is a
I
fun
started
journey.
thinking about it earlier and I got really like into my head about it. Yeah, so like going into the 60s we have our sort of iconic Motown sound developing,
Hmm.
soul, R&B,
Hmm.
very much a thing. I just like love music from the 60s very much.
I
Um,
always think of like the Beach Boys. That's like the 60s sound that I always think about.
yeah, I've got like a couple of things noted. Because a lot of like these styles of music underpin the music that we make and listen to today, and like
Hmm.
in like the Latin American field, like the 60s really saw like the birth of the bossa nova, which
Okay.
is a type of music that like I mean to be fair, a lot of like remember like a couple of summers ago, like we had like a real thing where we had a lot of kind of Latin American claves used in pop music.
Mm.
Um
And of course, with like Despacito being such a huge track at the
yeah.
time.
And so that was like a pretty like obvious rendition, like obvious showing of those claves, but like It's and like so much like R&B and whatever, like it's
Oh
all
yeah,
like
like there's just
underpinned and all
flares of it
that.
added here and there.
It's really interesting to like go into and find these little gems. But then we have, on the other hand, you couldn't talk about pop music in the 60s and not talk about like the British invasion. We have Beatlemania, and that was like sort of the first time I think the UK really had something on the scale
Going
of
for it
Elvis, the
musically.
same way of like fandom, and because that was like the 50s was very much the birth of the teenager
Yeah,
as an entity.
as an entity. Before then, people were just babies, then adults.
Well, they were babies and then they were soldiers or they were wives. That's the
Not the
reality of
soldiers.
wartime.
Rip.
Like
Yeah, the soldier part's not that fun.
no. So that was like really people having disposable income and being around kicking about in the 50s, 60s.
Just kicking.
Just allowed, and then it's like iconic 60s music. We then had like rock music really sort of becoming like we started to see the first like rock as a genre just has its own like separate fan of like it goes out into all the different subgenres that I'm not
Yes.
equipped to tell anyone about. We'll maybe have to get a guest expert in on that
To give real detail.
to give us the lowdown. Beatlemania happened. So much was going on.
Yes.
But we had like again like dancing. We had like the twist, like a bit of ponying.
Let's twist again. Like we did last summer.
You know, love was free. People were free.
Yeah. Flowers in your hair. That's what you're looking
Flowers
for.
were in your hair.
Very that.
We were living some lives, which then I think leads us quite nicely into the 70s. To a bit of disco and funk, which I know is very
Honestly,
your vibe.
like I know that we talk about there's a common like trend I think online where people will make fun of people that say, "Oh, I wish I could go back into this time period and exist what that felt like," because obviously no time period was great.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of negatives to them all, but I have to say I really like if I was given the option to go back in time to experience something, even if it was just for one night, I would want to be put in like New York City in the 70s, and I'd want to just go on like the disco train. I want to hear all that sound. I want to be part of that crowd because it sounded so like so fun.
Yeah.
And
We love a
just
sequin.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I want like a really outrageous moment like that, and it's kind of sad to know that we'll never know what that felt like.
Yeah.
With like a birth of a new sound taking over the nightlife, you know.
Also just like away from, so we had like disco, funk, jazz fusion. Obviously like rock was going on. Rock started
Still kicking,
having like
rock's been around.
we saw like that 70s was like the introduction of like glam rock, like new wave synth stuff coming in. But the pop music music of the 70s. We had our big hitters. We had like ABBA, Carole King, Elton John, Sonny and Cher, the Eagles, Stevie Wonder, Bowie, Fleetwood Mac had the Rumours album. Marvin Gaye, AC/DC,
Wham. Like, were Wham the 80s?
They're 80s, yeah.
Okay, rip.
I'm
just really enthusiastic about Wham.
I mean, they maybe were 70s, but like I definitely wrote George Michael for the 80s somewhere. So like maybe Wham more than the 70s, I can't remember.
Yes.
And there's a lot, so like the 70s I think is a great example of like big albums that are like iconic albums. And that was like that whole era was like buying that record and loving that record and listening to all the songs and listening to an album as a whole thing, which I don't think many people do anymore.
Not as often. But I think that there is like a culture online, at least if you like an artist enough, you're gonna listen to the full album. And also there's like, I know a lot of people react to albums in full online because obviously we don't get to see people outside hearing a song for the first time, so I think that like, it's kind of natural to want to see a review of an album, even if you've just really liked it and want to hear another opinion. I think that's what I often do.
Yeah, no, 100%. But all I meant by that was I don't think it's the same extent of like because you're not paying for a physical copy of something. Like obviously
Hmm.
like if you really like an artist, like you might buy the deluxe version to
Yeah, the
have
physical copy.
as a keepsake, but it's not the
Hmm.
same way as like that would be the only way that you could hear the music as if someone you had it or
Yeah.
someone you knew had it. Going on to the 80s. Again, a really, really fun time for pop music. I'm very like I enjoyed like digging this all back up earlier on today.
Hmm.
Because this is when we had our Madonnas, our Michael Jackson,
Okay.
Miss
Some real
Houston
heavy
came on the
hitters in the music
scene.
game. Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
And then like again like rock was sort of more in the pop like it was popular at the time, like that was the pop music of the time. So we had like
Yeah.
our Queen and Bon Jovi and the rest, like Bruce Springsteen,
I always think of Cyndi Lauper. Like
Cyndi
girls just want
Lauper.
to have fun. That's like a real an early track that really awoke something in me.
Oh yeah, no, but it's just because we had so much like technology was developing at that point
Hmm.
so
The
much. So
sounds were
like
doing a
we were
lot
really playing with sounds in ways that we hadn't. It's
and before.
I think it's always fun because it's like setting people out with a toy that they've never had before. And they're
Yeah.
like, let's just make all the sounds. Like that's
Let's
very
just do
like
everything.
let's just do everything and to like the highest degree. Like that
Hmm.
is 80s music. Because we also had like Live Aid was in the 80s and that's probably like one of the
Hmm.
most famous concerts ever. Also like going back to like other American styles of music, we had like hip hop was really becoming a thing.
Yeah.
Borrow like sampling
Really
those
building up the
hip
rap game
hop.
as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's like well hip hop and like rap culture really kind of began developing people sampling old
Hmm.
R&B soul tracks
I
and
love
patch.
sampling. That's one of my favorite things. I love homage and a track to something else I've heard.
Mm.
I think it is like a huge sign of respect as well for a musician to feature another musician that had a huge influence on them in a sample. I think that's so fun. And some people are really dumb because they still don't quite get the difference between sampling someone's like work and just blatantly copying. Like there's a fine line between, and yet some people still don't quite get it because they're like, "Oh, you copied this song." It's like, no, this is called
Yeah,
a
no, well
sample.
it's like there's copying a song and then there's like using a bass line for a song from like like
Or just a
as a
snippet, like,
yeah, like or a loop or a cut of it. Like it's done often and it's done most oftenly with oftenly most often
most often.
with the highest of respect. It's just
Yes.
there can become issues, but
Hmm.
it's a fun world to especially for like
It's
people
just a
that
fun world. End
I
of
mean in
story.
general, but like people that like are learning to be producers and stuff, like being able to
Hmm.
sample is such a beneficial thing because it's like well it's training that muscle of learning to take different things and patch them together. So
Hmm.
that's a lot of what like
Yeah.
production is sort of like patching different things together and seeing what
Yeah,
sounds
really
fun and
make your
what
own
doesn't.
Frankenstein of
Yeah.
a song.
I mean like every song is a Frankenstein. It's just like whether you're
True.
using samples or like
Hmm.
ideas that you've come up with in your own mind and
Hmm.
instruments. But yeah, 80s I can't think 80s and not just think like synth pop, like
Hmm.
that like big snare sound, like that like crack of the snare with like all the reverb.
Yes.
It's it's such an iconic sound. I really, really do enjoy it. To which I will now lead us in to one of our last categories of the day.
Hmm.
To the 1990s, my friend. The
Oh,
decade that two stars were born.
immediately Destiny's Child. Oh, were the two stars were born in the 90s?
Hmm.
Who were the two stars?
Just your favourite podcast hosts.
Oh, I was like, oh, who are they? I'd love to hear about them.
I thought you were playing dumb there.
No, I just was dumb. Just not playing. I don't play dumb. I am dumb.
That was funny.
So I always think of like Mariah, like
Yeah.
All I Want for Christmas, all these songs, they're all a 90s little banger. she just has so many songs from the 90s that like when I hear them, like Heartbreaker with Jay-Z, and oh, let's not forget that. So yeah, I said Destiny's Child to start with because
Of course.
what a girl band.
Yeah.
Iconic. I'm trying to think of who else I really liked from the 90s. Oh, I want to give a special shout out to Weezer.
I've got a little like pop punk birth moment
No,
written
but
down here.
that's one of the sounds that like from the 90s when I listen to it, I'm like, oh, that feels like the 90s to me. That
Yeah.
pop punk aesthetic is very 90s.
Yeah. Well, that was because we saw like the proper rise of Green Day and Blink 182
Hmm.
and like with some of like their bigger albums coming out then and like Red Hot Chili Peppers, which I know aren't pop
Plain White
punk, but
Tees.
um
They were maybe
so
2000s
fun.
actually.
I think Plain White Tees is 2000s, but we know the
Yeah.
vibe you were
Oops.
going with.
Yeah, I'm going on the alternative like punky rock vibe.
And then like going into back into pop music, we had like definitely as you were saying like boy band, girl band culture, like our NSYNCs,
Hmm.
our like
It's huge.
our Spice Girls, of course.
Britney.
Britney, Christina, J Lo, Celine
Yeah, like
Dion,
all the big
all the
names,
big
they really made
names.
an impact in the 90s, I'd say.
Also, just like going back into like the hip hop world, soul.
Hmm.
Um, we really saw like the birth of neo soul in the 90s. I say birth, but
Yes.
like we really started to like it became into the mainstream from our
Hmm.
queens, the queens of queens, like Erica Badu and
Oh yes.
Lauryn Hill and Missy Elliott really
Hmm.
just came out here to set the tone for the next like
Uh-huh.
20 to 30 years.
Big
Queens.
shout outs go to Mary J. Blige.
Oh yeah,
Huge
love
shout
my
outs to
Mary.
her. Her vocals are insane.
I just think of the 90s as a super transformative time for music because it was sort of like we're
Hmm.
going back to after like 80s being sort of in the pop charts so much.
Hmm.
It definitely like the pop punk, the pop like punk rock vibe definitely like started to
Came back
came
hard.
back and changed what was in the mainstream and that it was still rock but like that
Hmm.
punk and then obviously like you've got your Nirvana with the sort of grungy vibes and
Hmm.
that whole thing as well but which then went into like pop punk I think was like really like big in like 2000s and had a resurgence
Oh
even when
yeah.
we were like with like
In Britain especially,
in
because
Britain
I know that you spoke about like McFly and
yeah
they were made in this sort of image of being like punky schoolboy
yeah
kids,
definitely
and that
busted
really spoke to the teenager. Oh yeah, busted for sure. That was their whole aesthetic. We were
Mhm.
high school like edgy boys, and that
Yeah,
really got the girls going back then. Because I
it
remember my
really did.
sisters would have like stickers of
It was
Busted and
the
McFly
rip
on
out
like a
posters that you would get
container.
from the magazines, like that you would open it would be like a double spread.
I don't think we've ever been like a family of posters, but I do recall like a couple magazines being shown often.
I definitely
Or
had a
the
I had a few
a collection.
a few. But like I mean the 2000s I think really saw the birth of like it was the music that we grew up with, so we're pretty like
Hmm.
sentimental about it all, but
Oh, totally.
I've written some icons. I'll start again in like an R&B realm.
Okay.
We've got like Outkast, Eminem, Kanye
Hmm.
West, Jay-Z. I didn't know where to put the Black Eyed Peas, but I put them in there.
No, they're part. They can be part of that too. I want
Um,
to say Prodigy.
yes.
Prodigy get like a huge shout out for 2000s music that I have now like been really interested in.
And then obviously we've spoken about our pop punk moment, like we've had that
Hmm.
chat, but also wanted to make a mention of Avril Lavigne, like Alanis
Oh my
Morissette.
God, Avril, that Canadian goddess that just came out with some amazing hits and seemingly like had like a huge off the face of the earth disappearance and then came back again.
What a queen. Pop music. We had like Mr. Justin Timberlake doing his thing.
Sexy back.
Lady Gaga made her
Jaga.
Lady Gaga really came
Gaga.
into she was like 2008 kind of vibes
Yeah, yeah, around
like
then. I remember what the first song was Just Dance that I heard.
yeah
Loved it. Still love it. A really
still love
fun
it
track.
I listen to that song That's one of my hype songs. That's one of my
Oh, for sure.
um
That's before you go out.
before
That's
you
the
go out,
song
it's
on.
on. Yeah. And then there was like that other sort of like singer-songwritery vibe that was really big in the 2000s, like Alicia Keys, Nora Jones, Sarah
Okay.
Bareilles, kind of Tumblr
hmm
girl moment.
Sarah McLachlan.
Sarah, when somebody loved me.
Oh, I was gonna go in the arms of the angel.
I sang that at
Very
every
that
school
vibe.
concert when I was like
I bet you
15.
did. I
That
bet you did.
I sang the heck out of that song.
Oh, I
Everyone be
bet you were trying
crying.
to get
It's a
the dog
tearjerker.
sponsored.
Oh, DDV. And then, I mean, I just think like we have spoken a lot about the 2000s and 2010s on
But
this
for good
podcast,
reason.
but it's
There's so
because
much content
so
now.
much happened there. It was a really, really great time for music. I mean, even like now is a fun time for music, but
Yeah. I
like
think it was always a fun time in music.
over the 2010s, I'm gonna fly through this because
Okay.
we've got like a lot of
Please
hits to
fly.
cover. The
Okay.
2010s, we saw like the birth of, we had the resurgence of the British invasion, and that we had like One
hmm
Direction, Ed Sheeran,
hmm
Adele, Sam
Yeah.
Smith. Like that whole vibe happened. And
Even like Ellie Goulding, she had
oh
quite a
yeah,
few
Ellie
songs go big
Goulding.
in the US.
Her doing her Pantene ads. I hope you're great, Ellie. Um,
I'll
like
make sure she
she
gets a
gets the
copy of
memo.
the
Yeah,
podcast just so she knows.
I would have mentioned Rita Ora, but like we don't care for her behavior
She's an
lately.
interesting figure.
Yeah,
After that birthday party thing, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
we saw just like the puberty and moving into adulthood of Justin Bieber.
hmm Oh yes, we
Um,
did. We did. We watched that happen. So
uh,
many like big like sorry, these are just coming to my mind. So like when I'm going very British with this, but like JLS,
oh my goodness,
the
yeah.
Saturdays,
hmm
um, Alexandra Burke,
Leona Lewis.
Leona
Little Mix. Oh
Lewis.
my goodness, Little
Little
Mix.
Mix, Little Mix, huge big deal. Part of the I'd say they're right beside One Direction, probably for the
Yeah.
girl side.
Not British, but like your Katy Perry, your
Oh
Pink.
yeah, like I very often like think that a lot of my sound and my listening tastes have come from a couple of tracks from the Teenage Dream album by Katy
Yeah.
Perry. Like that sort of like summery, fun, poppy aesthetic has always stuck with me, and it's what I think I still crave to this day because I was telling Erin about a song that I heard from none other than Rebecca Black, who,
hmm
was completely demolished by meme culture back in the early 2000s with Friday, and how she's like on a
Built
weird
herself back up.
upward, yeah, she's building herself back up and saying like, oh well, you guys did this to my life as a child, so I've released a brand new remix 10 years later, and here's some other songs I'm doing, and one of which sounds exactly like something that would have been off like a Carly Rae Jepsen or Katy Perry album, and it's very cute. I'm
Yeah.
into it.
And like speaking of just like the current music and what we see the future of like Western
hmm
pop music developing, like something that's been happening this whole time, this whole gosh darn time, is
Yeah.
like K-pop and J-pop, but it's
Oh
just making
yeah,
its way
just been
into
building.
like it's sort of made its way across the world into
Yeah,
our
I mean,
little
I'm like a big
West.
fan of multiple K-pop groups at this
hmm
point in my life, and I think that there has been like a big shift. BTS especially,
Yeah,
they're doing like this
bits.
is their like Beatles moment. This is very
Yeah,
like the beginning of something huge
the
for
start of
them.
something new.
And like, I think their sales go to show it all. Like they make the most sales out of
Their
like just
records
physical
of
album
like
copies,
music videos
their
on YouTube
tours.
are
Yeah, like
insane.
there's not one aspect of it that they haven't like had an influence on and haven't influenced their own like genre as well. Like the
hmm
K-pop genre itself has taken a shift as well to follow in turn with what BTS have done. And I think that, yeah, these days, we listen to a lot more foreign music than we maybe would have ever done in the past, but that's just because it's become widely available. And I
Yeah,
think that
we
there's always,
have.
if there's quality music there, it'll become popular at some stage.
Yeah, and there is like a lot of concern and issues around these streaming platforms, and that like
Yeah.
artists, especially smaller artists, don't get paid a fair amount, really.
Yeah.
And the market, because everyone can upload, there's the whole argument that it's super oversaturated and that kind of vibe. But honestly,
What isn't?
you know,
What isn't oversaturated at this point?
everyone is finding, like, I think we all have much more diverse music tastes than we would
Back in the day,
back
for
in
sure.
the day, and that can only be an exciting thing.
Totally, because like we have no idea where music is going to take us over the next 10 years, but
No.
like we have for the past 10 years watched music change and evolve and become more popular and fade out of, you know, relevancy. But I think it's very exciting that, you know, as we get older, music just it'll change with us.
Yeah, well, the
And
more we listen to, the more diverse influences we're going to have on the music that's created. Like, technology that's always developing and becoming more affordable means that more people are able to create and publish music, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
And hopefully soon we'll be back to going to gigs and
Oh, I hope so.
playing in bands and doing all the things.
Like, I'm not even big on going to a gig, but after this lockdown, I've kind of set myself up with like I'm doing the most extroverted things of my life for like a good while, so I can
much.
just get that like back into my system of what the world is like.
Yeah. And to wrap it up there, I think this has been a fun time. It's been a fun time for me because I've just been indulging what I like to speak about. But I hope you've enjoyed having a chat with me, Kieran.
I've had a great time. I really enjoy listening to, I mean, like all of the history and the context that you're putting in from like the 50s onwards is really helpful to, you know, put everything in perspective for me because I only knew so much about this before going in. But yeah, I've had a really nice time just getting to chat about some of my favorite artists too.
I know, I love listening, like hearing what people listen to. And
It always puts like in the back of my head, like when I go to search for something next, I think about what other people are listening to and I go, okay, maybe I'll try that for
yeah,
this
so
time.
if anyone listening has still you've made it this far into the podcast, please do give us your recommendations in the comments if you're kicking about.
We also have an email.
We do have an email, but please send respectful. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the It's Not Always Dark podcast. We've had an absolute hoot talking about pop music. We can't wait to talk about it more, to talk about new things, different forms of media, different forms of music, making music, musicals.
Music.
Did I say music enough? I don't know if I said music enough.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Please subscribe and hit like while you're there. Why not?
And we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.